So just to talk a little bit more about repealing the face coverings order. What this means is that masks will no longer be mandatory in those broad ranges of indoor environments that this order sets out. However, some settings will still require that you wear a mask. For example, for healthcare settings, physicians' offices, patient contact. But in most low-risk locations, it will now be an option and no longer a necessity. Critical to success, though, as we move through this transition phase, is for everybody to move at your own pace. We have learned and we know now a lot more about masks than we did a few years ago. They are both a layer of protection for ourselves and, importantly, a layer of protection for those around us. So while masks are no longer required or mandated under an order as of tomorrow, some people in some locations will and continue to use masks personally or in their business. And that's okay. We need to support that. We need to recognize that we all have our own risks and our own vulnerabilities. And particularly if you are older, if you're immune compromised, you may still wear a mask in some locations, especially if you're inside or around a large number of people that you don't know. If you've not yet had your booster or your children are not yet vaccinated, then masks continue to be a very important protective layer that you may want to continue to use, especially in larger crowds and indoors. If we, in part of the mask order was that COVID safety plans needed to include masking in common areas of workplaces. That is no longer an order, but in many workplaces, masks will still be required. They just will no longer be mandated in those areas. Masks continue to be encouraged in some of those settings where we have to get close to other people and we can't necessarily avoid it, in things like public transit and on BC ferries. But they're no longer, as I said, mandated under an order. The other important sectors that this affects, of course, are childcare and early childhood education and our K-12 sector. So childcare guidelines we're going to be revising them. We're in the process of revising them with our childcare and early childhood educator stakeholders, and they will be updated to reflect the different risk levels and the use of masks. And the K-12 school guidelines as well. And this means that masks will no longer be required in all settings in schools once children and staff return from spring break. So we recognize that spring break is slightly different in the 60 school districts across the province. Some, a good portion start tomorrow, and a number start the end of next week. And so what we have done is made sure that all of the revisions in the guidance will come into play when you return from spring break at whenever that is for each school district. And if you're not sure which school district it is, there'll be a link to that on the website with the order. Additionally, those workplaces that are federally regulated will need to continue to follow federal health orders and guidelines around workplaces.